So let's get into some live action. Hello and welcome to another episode of Stories from Grayskull Unscripted. So I just came home from watching the latest Masters of the Universe movie with my daughter, and I figured that while this isn't really a movie review site, I mean I talk about toys, I still wanted to release something special for my channel to take advantage, I guess, of the internet buzz around this movie. Because, spoiler, it's a good movie. I liked it. I enjoyed it immensely. But full caveat, I'm a huge Masters of the Universe fan. So take it as you will. And given that this is a toy channel, I'm still on the fence on whether I'm going to be getting any of the Masters of the Universe Chronicles figures. Actually, that's a lie. I actually got this guy. Boom. And He-Man is on the way, but he didn't make it in time for this video. But to be honest, I'm not very impressed by the rest of most of the Chronicles figures. I don't know what it is, but none of them really get to me. But guys, Mattel, whoever took this promo shot of He-Man and Battle Cat, you gotta give this guy a raise, because I think this picture single-handedly sold you a hell of a lot of He-Man and Battle Cats. So even if I don't go all in on the Chronicles line or any of the live-action movie stuff, at least Battle Cat and He-Man will make a good standalone piece. And maybe Skeletor. I'm tempted about that trap jaw. Man, that trap jaw looks awesome. And okay, a bit of a spoiler. He's pretty awesome in the movie. But okay, enough of that. So I don't have any 2026 live-action movie toys to talk about. So I figured, why not go back in time? Because everybody's going to be talking about the 2026 movie, and rightfully so. But I figured I'd go the other way and talk about the first movie, because the first movie that came out in 1987, it's also special to me because it was one of the very first, I think it was the first movie that I saw in the theater as a kid, from start to finish, because I watched Superman 2, and I watched that one, and I don't know if you know the story, but he gave up his powers for Lois Lane, and he got beaten up by these people, and I started crying, so I had to get escorted out of the theater. So the 1987 movie was one of the first live-action movies that I saw in the theater from start to finish. And I mean, growing up, I was a huge Masters of the Universe fan, so this is a big thing for me. So with that being said, let's get started. So just a little backstory for those who aren't familiar. So this was a joint project between Mattel and a movie company called Canon, which no longer exists, because at that point, Mattel and Canon were in like dire straits, and they were like really hoping against hope that this movie would save both companies. And long story short, the movie I don't think did very well, but for us Masters fans, it was fantastic, and I think it's since gained some cult status. But my point is, it was a troubled production, and like a big problem was budget. So one of the biggest criticisms of that movie was it was set on Earth most of the time, and we didn't get a lot of the usual characters that we were used to, like Merman and Pisto and whatever, right? So basically what I'm saying is they did a lot of new characters for the movie for different reasons. Somewhat, they didn't want to see Merman get killed on the movie screen. So they created new characters. Some were cool, some were not, and whatever. But the point is, the movie didn't do so well. So Canon went out of business, and the He-Man line kind of died, I think, by 87, 88. And so like, even if they did plan to release characters from the movie in their toy line, they didn't get around to all of them. And so with that in mind, years later in the Classics line, because Mattel and whoever owns the rights to a lot of these unique characters aren't in the best of terms, Mattel really didn't have the rights to create a lot of the movie figures. Characters like Beastman they owned, but the specific look that he had in the movie, they couldn't touch it. Same with Evelyn, she had a specific look. They couldn't release a Classics version of Evelyn and Beastman. What they could do was that they could release Classics versions of movie toys that they had already released in 1987. And so with that, they were able to release these two, Blade, and Saurod. So I believe these two were the only movie toys that were released in the original Masters of the Universe line in 87. At least at first, these were the only ones that Mattel could straight up redo in Classics form. So let's get started with these guys. So first up is Saurod. So if you remember the movie, he didn't really do much. Why? Because, like I said, Mattel didn't want to see their classic characters get killed on screen. And so the production company, or the writers of the movie, basically made up their own characters to get killed. And Saurod had that unfortunate distinction of being the first, if not the only, evil warrior to be killed. So as the story goes, the evil warriors go to Earth and they try to hunt He-Man. They fail, and Skeletor gets pissed off and he kills one of them. And the one he kills is this guy, Saurod, who looks awesome. He's like some lizard dude crossed with the Predator. He gives me, maybe it's the shape of his helmet, but he gives me Predator vibes, right? And I believe the original toy had like some, you know that flint thing that lighters have. I could be wrong, but that's what I remember. I also remember hearing that because the original toy was made out of gold armor, that he was constantly breaking. But anyway, this version doesn't have that problem, and I really think it's awesome, right? It's a cool design. A lizard dressed in golden armor. And yeah, so again, cool look, but he didn't really last long in the movie. So I'm not sure why Mattel prioritized to make him. But that being said, I'm happy that they made him in the original line, because that way we could forget it. We could get him in classics. And so this is Saurod. Now, this guy was my favorite in the movie. He was my favorite bad guy. This is Blade, for obvious reasons. He comes armed with 2 blades. And I forget the name of the actor, but what's cool about the actor is he's actually a real swordsman. So I'm guessing they hired him and they designed the character concept around him. So he's the weapons master, I guess. He's got his 2 blades. He's got little daggers all around his legs. And for me, he was just the star of the movie. But he was my favorite bad guy, and I was really stoked that they made him in the original toy line, which means we got him in classics. The detailing is fantastic. I love the chainmail and the dry brushing. He also comes with a whip, because apparently, even if his name is Blade, he came with a whip, and he actually used it in the movie to fight He-Man. I remember he had this line like, "I've been waiting to fight you," or whatever. So hinting that like he had like some rivalry with He-Man or something. I don't know, but I just thought he was fantastic. Unfortunately, okay, I love this figure, and you probably saw it earlier when I put these 2 side by side, but maybe Saurod's a giant, but Blade is so tiny. He is tiny. I think it's Saurod who's just oversized, which is fine. He's a monster, so, you know, that can pass, I guess. Yeah, so Blade and Saurod. So those were the only 2. Now, in the movie, okay, so there were, like I mentioned earlier, Beastman was there, Evelyn was there, but they never got around to making those figures in the original toy line, and so we never got them in classics. What we did get was another new character, and his name was Karg, and he also did not come out in the original line. And so for the longest time, Mattel couldn't do him in the classics, in their classics line. And when Super 7 took over, they found a loophole. And that loophole was that Karg actually appeared in some mini comic book or something, I don't know. And so they said, this is not the Karg from the movie, this is the Karg from the comic. And so we were able to get Karg. And I was kind of excited for this guy because, okay, of all the new characters, I mean with Saurod and Blade, Karg was my least favorite because, one, I don't get what he's supposed to be, right? He looks like he's got a rough collar, like not rough as in not smooth, but rough, like, you know, the medieval collars. So I don't know what he is. He's got a hook, so is he a pirate? He's got a big puff of hair. So I'm not quite sure what he is, but he was like the leader, the field leader of the group. So I was quite happy to have him. And actually, okay, so this is a comic version. So he was not this color in the movie. He was more monochrome. Is that the word? He was basically mostly black. And so, which I'm happy that they went with this, the comic version, because I mean, the only thing I remember from the movie was his head and this ugly puff of hair. As a toy, I like this more, you know, he pops more with the green face, the yellow hair, and the blue armor. So he pops more. And so I prefer this. This is basically what we got from Mattel and Super 7 for the Classics line for the longest time. And then Super 7 found another bigger loophole, and that was when they released the William Stout collection. So who is William Stout and why does he have a collection? So William Stout was the production designer of the movie, and a lot of these concepts were made by him. And well, apparently Super 7 struck a deal with William Stout, and so he, I guess, gave them the permission to use whatever concepts that he had. And so because of that, Super 7 was able to release Karg in his original movie colors, which I didn't get. So they released a William Stout collection of 4 figures. The first one was a recolor of Karg in his black attire, which I didn't care for. And the 3 other figures were the big ones: Skeletor and He-Man and the God and a God version of Skeletor. So if you don't remember the movie, at the end, Skeletor gets super powered and he becomes God mode Skeletor, all gold and stuff. And so, okay, so long story short, I did not get the William Stout collection from Super 7. I believe you had, at that time, you had to get all 4, and I didn't care for I was happy with this card, so I didn't really want that. And I decided to pass on the set and eventually learned to regret it quite a lot, because I think that these 2 figures are awesome. And like I had a chance to get these guys in BBTS from their original sale price. I believe it was $45, maybe $55 tops. But when that got sold out, these guys went for double, triple the price. They were like really, really expensive. I think here in the Philippines, at their height, these guys were sold at maybe 10 to 11,000 per figure, which was crazy. So for the longest time, they were 2 of my biggest regrets and 2 figures that I thought I would never get. So how did I get them? Well, I did not shell out 20,000 pesos for them. So my in-laws had a client who was a toy collector, and he died. He passed away. He was in his 40s, mid-40s, and he died. He didn't have a family. He was all alone, and his sister was the client of my in-laws. And so she asked if they could take care of selling his stuff. And so like for the longest time, my wife's family house was full of this dude's collection. As in, he collected everything, mostly Transformers, but he collected everything. Transformers, G.I. Joe, He-Man, Star Wars, you name it, he had it. Like boxes and boxes and boxes and baggies and baggies and baggies. And so before they went selling them off to whoever, they gave me first dibs. Well, not just me, but our family, to go through whatever they want. And so found these 2 in a Ziploc bag. And they sold it to me at a very, 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 very reasonable price. But okay, full disclosure, by this time, this was maybe about a year ago, by that time, Mattel had actually come around to releasing these guys in the Masterverse line. So I'm guessing the overall value, because my in-law, he looked up the price, and I don't know if he just gave me a big discount, but these guys came off really reasonably cheap. And so, you know, I took it, right? Who wouldn't? And so I finally got my Dark Despot Skeletor and my Rebel Leader He-Man. So Skeletor was the one I really wanted. I mean, he was played by Frank Langella, who was like fantastic in the role. I mean, this was before CGI, so this was like face makeup. And the detailing of this is just fantastic. You know, the Havoc staff, very intricate. In its way, it's become one of the more iconic looks for Skeletor, I think. So I was very happy to get this guy. Of course, I could have just stopped with him, but this guy was already available as well. Rebel Leader He-Man. And first things first, okay, they did not have the rights to Dolph Lundgren's face. When I first saw pictures of this guy online, I didn't think his face looked that great. And it's, you know, it's okay, right? And it looks better in person. But yeah, I mean, they could have done worse in the live action movie, right? And Dolph Lundgren, even if he didn't speak the best English, I think was pretty decent. Maybe I'm remembering it from rose-colored glasses, but I thought he was pretty good. And so, what's Skeletor without He-Man? And I mean, he's He-Man, so he does look a lot bigger. But yeah, that's the story of these guys. My wife would always say, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And you know, to that collector, who I did not know personally, God rest his soul. We all gotta go somewhere. someday, and at least I'd like him to know that these two have found a nice home with someone who really wanted them. And so I thank him. But we're not done yet. Actually, I forgot someone that Mattel came around to doing, because Saurod and Blade weren't the only toys released by Mattel. They also, for the good guys, they released this dude, Gwildor. So from what I heard, the story was, again, victim of budget limitations, they could not do Orko for the film. And so they came up with this new character called Gwildor, who takes the place of that little runt, whatever, sidekick character. But no, he's not really a sidekick. He's a central character to the movie because he creates this. He made this. I forget what it's called, but the time key or the whatever. So this is the MacGuffin of the film. It opens portals and stuff like that. And it plays notes. So yeah, they go to Earth. They meet Courtney Cox, who's the female star of the movie, and she's like a teenager, and so she helps them with her boyfriend, and her boyfriend's a musician, and so like the boyfriend, I forget the actor's name, but he plays songs on this thing which opens up portals and stuff like that. So this is Gwildor. He's like the magic guy. He's not really a magic guy. He's more like an inventor, I guess. And I mean, he was, from what I remember, he was pretty funny in the movie. He's a gnome, a mix of a dwarf and a gnome, and I don't know what. But he's a very well done figure as well. So all of them, the Classics line was really supposed to be amped up versions of the original figures, which were really great, but they were also simple in design. But obviously these are live action movie figures, and so their designs were a little bit more intricate. And Classics, oops, his sword fell. Classics was able to, I think, do these guys a lot of justice. Comparing them next to Saurod, let's put him in the back because he's the tallest. Compared to a lot of the original Masters of the Universe figures, these guys are very intricate in their, like, look at the work on the armor of He-Man, right? Look at that sculpting and detailing, the shin guards. So, oops, Saurod fell. So, yeah. I think Skeletor deserves a better slot than that. Okay, Saurod, please stand. Let's put Skeletor here. Okay, so yeah, and that's, Saurod. And that's basically it, right? That's your 1987 Masters of the Universe. So like I said, Mattel, I think, has since made nice with whoever owns the rights. So they have released an Evelyn, which I've been tempted to get because from reviews it looks like you can kind of fudge her fitting in with this group, right? And they also did the Beast Man, which I'm surprised. I don't know if they just didn't make a lot of him, but he's pretty expensive now. And so if I get a chance, if I find one, maybe I'll get him. I don't know. But, those retail versions, the paint decos aren't as nice as these guys. I mean, there's an obvious difference. So if I do get a Beastman or an Evelyn or both, I'll probably have to splurge a bit and, paint them up a bit more. And so, yeah, that's it. That's the 1987 movie line. If you haven't seen it, I mean, I'm sure you can find it somewhere online. But again, this is not a review of the new movie, but if you haven't seen it yet, please go out and see it. It's really good. I mean, if you like Masters of the Universe, if you're a fan, if you love He-Man, specifically the Filmation, you're going to love this movie. It might not be for everyone, but the one thing I will say about it is that the ones who made it, the director, what's his name, Travis Knight, he did the Bumblebee movie. They have a great respect for the source material, which is, I think, really important. I mean, they don't do anything groundbreaking in terms of storytelling, but they respect the material and they give a good live action representation of this property that has been long overdue, right? And the music is awesome. Brian May from Queen. I don't know, it's a good movie. I'll probably watch it at some point again because, it's a lot to take in, but it's a good movie. Maybe I'll come up, when He-Man arrives, maybe I'll throw in a new thing about my thoughts on Chronicles and stuff and give more thoughts on the movie. But till then, thanks for watching. This is the 1987 movie, and till the next episode. Bye.